My name is Natalie, and the night my husband chose his mother over me, he abandoned not only his wife, he abandoned our newborn baby. That night is etched into me like a scar. It was just after midnight in the hospital. The room smelled faintly of antiseptic and stale flowers. Machines beeped in quiet rhythm. My body throbbed with the aftershocks of labor. I was weak, trembling, barely able to lift my head. In the crib beside me, our daughter's tiny cries pierced the silence, soft but relentless. She was only hours old. She needed warmth. She needed us. She needed him. But when I turned toward the chair where Mark had promised to sit, he wasn't there. His jacket still hung on the armrest, limp and accusing. His charger remained plugged into the wall, but his phone was gone. The emptiness of that chair filled the room more than his presence ever could. At first, I told myself he must have stepped out. Coffee. A quick call. Maybe even to bring his mother the news she had been demanding to hear. I tried to believe it. 10 minutes passed. 30. An hour. Nurses drifted in and out, adjusting monitors, checking on me, checking on the baby. Each time they asked softly if I needed anything. My lips wanted to form the words "I need my husband," but he was nowhere. By dawn, after endless hours of waiting, the door opened. Mark walked in, his hair tousled, his eyes heavy, not from worry but from sleep. His expression wasn't contrite. It wasn't even rushed. He slipped into the room like a man returning from a long nap. I whispered, broken but hopeful, "Where were you?" He barely looked at me as he said it. "Mom needed me." For words. They hollowed me out. Vivian. His mother. The woman who had hovered over our lives since the day I met him. She criticized my cooking, my clothes, the way I decorated our home. At our wedding, she had whispered to a guest loud enough for me to hear. "She will never be enough for him." I told myself that once the baby came, things would change. That Mark would finally put his family, our family, first. But he hadn't. On the night our daughter entered the world, he chose her. He left me, raw and trembling, with our baby in my arms, while he ran to his mother's side. I stared at him in silence, rage and grief twisting together inside me. He kissed our daughter's forehead quickly, mechanically, and sat down, scrolling his phone like nothing had happened. The days that followed blurred into a storm of exhaustion. Sleepless nights. Feedings that left me cracked and aching. Diapers, cries, fear that I was doing everything wrong. I begged Mark for help, but his excuses were endless. Mom needs groceries. Mom asked me to fix the faucet. Mom isn't feeling well. It was never about us. Never about me. Every time the door closed behind him, I felt another piece of my marriage crumble. When I confronted him, my voice ragged from fatigue and hurt, he sneered. "Stop competing with my mother, Natalie. You'll never win." The cruelty of that sentence knocked the air from my lungs. It wasn't just neglect. It was a choice. He had picked her over me, over our child, over the vows we had spoken. That night, as I sat rocking our baby in the dark, I felt something shift inside me. It wasn't just heartbreak anymore. It wasn't even anger. It was something sharper, colder. A vow forming in my bones. If Mark thought he could abandon me and our baby for his mother, if he thought I would live quietly in his shadow, then he was wrong. Because one day he would regret it. He thought I was weak. He thought I was broken. He thought his mother's grip on him was unshakable. But he was about to learn how powerful I could be. The weeks after bringing our daughter home blurred into exhaustion. I measured time not by clocks but by her cries, her feedings, the rare moments of silence when she finally slept. My body was still healing, my mind balancing on the edge of collapse. I needed a partner, but Mark was rarely there. He claimed he was helping his mother. Always his mother. When I asked him to hold the baby so I could shower, he told me, "Vivian asked me to mow the lawn. She can't do it herself." When I begged him to rock our daughter so I could close my eyes for 20 minutes, he shook his head. "Mom needs me to drive her to the store." Every excuse felt like a betrayal. I was drowning, and the man who was supposed to be my lifeline kept swimming to someone else's shore. One evening, after hours of screaming from colic, I collapsed onto the couch, clutching our daughter to my chest. Mark walked in, his shirt damp with sweat, his hands dirty from yard work. But instead of coming to us, he set his tools down and dialed his mother. His face softened, his voice warm as he asked, "You okay, Mom? Did you eat? Do you need anything tonight?" I stared at him in disbelief. His mother had food in her fridge, running water, 2 working hands. Meanwhile, I was bleeding, aching, and rocking a wailing newborn alone. I snapped, "Mark, what about me? What about us? Your daughter has been screaming for hours, and you're asking if your mother ate dinner?" He shot me a look that silenced me more than his words. Cold. Sharp. "Don't start, Natalie. You always make it a competition. Mom raised me. She's family. She comes first." Those words sliced me deeper than any wound childbirth had left. His mother comes first. Not me. Not our child. Her. My hands trembled as I clutched our baby tighter. "We are your family, Mark. Me and her. We should come first." His voice rose, anger flashing. "Stop being so dramatic. Mom needs me more than you do. You're fine." Fine. That night I cried silently while rocking our daughter, her tiny breath against my skin. I wasn't fine. I was unraveling. The betrayal grew heavier days later. Vivian called while I was nursing. I could hear her voice, sharp and insistent, through Mark's phone. "She's making you weak. She's keeping you from me. You belong here, not chained to her." And Mark didn't argue. He nodded, murmuring, "I know, Mom. I know." I froze. My chest tightened. "You belong here. Not with me. Not with our daughter. With her." When he hung up, I confronted him. My voice shook. "I heard what she said. She doesn't see me as your wife. She doesn't even see our baby as your responsibility. And you let her talk like that." Mark's jaw clenched. His eyes narrowed. "Mom is right. Ever since the baby came, you've been needy, controlling. You don't understand. She needs me." I stared at him, stunned. "She needs you? I just gave birth to your child. I can barely walk. I'm bleeding, I'm exhausted, and I'm raising her alone. And you think your mother needs you more?" He didn't answer. Instead, he grabbed his keys and muttered, "I'm staying at Mom's tonight. Don't wait up." The door slammed behind him. That was the night the betrayal stopped being subtle. He hadn't just abandoned me emotionally. He physically walked out, leaving me alone with our newborn while he slept in his mother's house. I sat on the floor, rocking my daughter as tears blurred my vision. But beneath the heartbreak, something else stirred. Cold resolve. If Mark wanted to pretend I was invisible, if he wanted to erase me and our child in favor of his mother, then he was about to learn that erasing me came with consequences. When Mark chose to sleep at his mother's house, something inside me cracked wide open. I had begged, I had pleaded, I had cried. None of it mattered. He had made his choice, and it wasn't us. But if he thought I would crumble quietly, he was wrong. I needed the truth. Not just my suspicions, not just the ache in my chest. Hard truth. The kind that could not be twisted into his mother's version of reality. It started small. One afternoon while the baby napped, I searched his desk drawer. That was where he always tossed bills and receipts. My hands trembled as I shuffled through envelopes. Most were mundane, but then one caught my eye. A receipt from a jewelry store. A necklace. Expensive. Dated 2 weeks before our daughter was born. I had never received it. My stomach churned. I knew exactly where it had gone. Vivian. I slipped the receipt into a folder, my first piece of evidence. The next clue came from his phone bill. Mark never changed his online login. I waited until he showered during one of his rare visits home, then opened the account on my laptop. Line after line of calls stared back at me. Nearly every evening, after leaving me and the baby, he dialed his mother. Sometimes for minutes, sometimes for hours. Midnight calls. Dawn calls. Each one a dagger in my chest. I printed the logs. Page after page filled the tray until the stack was thick. Rachel, my oldest friend, came over the next day to help with the baby. I confessed through tears what I had found. She didn't flinch. "Natalie, this isn't just neglect. It's obsession. He's tied to her like a puppet, and she's pulling every string." Her anger steadied me. She offered more than sympathy, she offered strategy. Document everything. Don't just feel betrayed, prove it. Make a case so strong even he can't deny it. So I did. I began keeping a notebook. Each time he left to help his mother, I wrote the date, the time, and what I had been left to handle alone. Each time she called and he whispered in the hallway, I noted the hour. My words filled page after page until the notebook became a diary of abandonment. Claire, another close friend, was more technical. She helped me cross-reference his absences with charges on our joint account. It was all there. Gas, groceries, pharmacy runs, all for Vivian. Meanwhile, our fridge at home sat nearly empty. Some nights I ate crackers for dinner while nursing our child. The more I uncovered, the colder I became. This wasn't simply a husband stretched too thin. It was a man who had chosen his mother and funneled his energy, his money, his loyalty to her, while his wife and child withered in neglect. The worst discovery came one Sunday afternoon. I had bundled the baby for a nap drive, hoping the car would soothe her crying. When we passed Vivian's house, I slowed instinctively. Mark's car sat in the driveway. I knew he was there, but what froze me was the scene in the living room window. Through sheer curtains, I saw Vivian sitting proudly at her table. Mark was at her side, laughing. In front of him sat the necklace from the receipt, glittering against her throat. He had gifted her jewelry while I bled in a hospital bed. The betrayal made me dizzy. I pulled the car over, tears blurring the windshield. My baby whimpered softly in the back seat. I looked at her tiny fists, her fragile body. She deserved a father who valued her more than his mother's approval. She deserved a mother who wouldn't allow herself to be erased. That night I added a photo. From a distance I snapped Vivian through her window, the necklace catching light. Proof that the receipt had been hers. Proof that Mark had chosen to spoil his mother while neglecting us. Piece by piece my binder grew. Receipts, call logs, bank statements, photos, and my own diary entries. Each page was a blade. Each blade was a weapon. I wasn't ready to strike yet, but I was building an arsenal. And the more I gathered, the clearer it became. Mark and Vivian weren't just blind to their betrayal. They believed they were untouchable. That was their greatest mistake. The binder sat heavy on my kitchen table, its spine bulging from the weight of printed pages. Receipts, call logs, bank statements, photos, every lie preserved under plastic sleeves. It looked less like paperwork and more like a weapon waiting to be unleashed. But a weapon is useless if wielded alone. I needed allies, people who would not only believe me but help me carry this through. Rachel was already with me. She had been my anchor from the start, holding the baby when I was too exhausted, reminding me I wasn't crazy when Mark gaslit me. Now when I flipped through the binder for her, her jaw tightened. Natalie, she said, you have more than enough to bury him. And if you want the world to see what he's done, I'll be there holding the spotlight. Her certainty steadied me, but I knew I needed more. I called Lauren, my older sister. She arrived that evening, storming through the door with fire in her eyes. She scooped up my daughter, holding her close, then turned on me. He left you for her? For his mother? While you're raising this baby alone. I slid the binder across the table. Lauren flipped through the pages, her fury growing with every turn. When she saw the photo of Vivian wearing the necklace, she slammed the binder shut. This isn't just betrayal. This is humiliation. We're going to make sure everyone sees exactly who he is. Her words weren't gentle. They weren't meant to soothe. They were gasoline poured on the flames already burning in my chest. Then there was Claire, my friend from college. She worked in IT and could do things with a laptop that felt like sorcery. She came over with her computer bag, set it on the table, and started scanning the binder. If you want this airtight, she said, we'll digitize everything. Backup copies. Encrypted drives. If he tries to deny, delete, or destroy, we'll still have it all. Her fingers flew across the keyboard. Soon every receipt, every call log, every photo was saved in triplicate. She even created a slideshow, smooth and professional, each page dissolving into the next. If you want to expose him publicly, she said, this is your weapon. It's not just paper, it's undeniable. The final ally was Evelyn Carter, my lawyer. I walked into her office with the binder clutched to my chest. She flipped through it slowly, her expression unreadable. When she finally looked up, her voice was calm but edged with steel. Natalie, this isn't just evidence of neglect. This is grounds for custody, for divorce, for financial retribution. You could win everything. Her words filled me with something I hadn't felt in months. Power. But Evelyn leaned closer. What do you want? Do you want to fight quietly in court? Or do you want him and his mother to face the truth where they can't hide? The question burned in me. I thought of Mark's voice saying, "You'll never win." I thought of Vivian's smug smile, the necklace gleaming at her throat. I thought of nights rocking my baby alone while he whispered into the phone with her. "I want them exposed," I whispered. "Not in private. In public. Where they pretend to shine." Evelyn nodded once. "Then pick your stage." And I knew exactly what stage it would be. Vivian's birthday was coming up. She had already planned a grand party at her house, her kingdom, where she would preen and gloat before neighbors, family, and friends. She wanted Mark at her side, smiling like the devoted son. She wanted me in the background holding the baby, playing the role of the quiet, grateful wife. But I wasn't going to play her role anymore. I was going to walk into her party not as the obedient daughter-in-law she could sneer at, but as the woman who carried the truth. I would bring the binder, the slideshow, the evidence, and I would rip the mask from both of them in front of everyone they sought to impress. For the first time since Mark left me in that hospital bed, I felt steady. The plan was forming. The allies were beside me. And deep down I knew this wasn't just revenge. It was justice, for me, for my daughter, for every night I had cried alone. Once I chose Vivian's birthday party as the stage, everything shifted. My pain turned into precision. My heartbreak turned into strategy. Revenge wasn't going to be a scream in the night. It was going to be a performance, planned down to the last detail. The binder grew thicker as the days passed. Claire turned the pages into a digital slideshow, complete with timestamps, receipts, and photos that faded one into another with cold precision. She even set it to autoplay in case I lost my nerve. "You won't have to press anything," she said. "Just plug it in, and the truth will flow like water." Rachel rehearsed with me. We stood in my living room, my baby asleep in her bassinet, while she played the role of Vivian. She hurled insults I had heard 100 times. "You'll never be enough. He belongs to me." Rachel's words stabbed, but my calm replies grew sharper with every round. By the third rehearsal, my voice no longer shook. Lauren worked on my appearance. "If you're going to expose them, you're not walking and looking broken," she said, tugging dresses from my closet. She settled on a deep emerald green, a color that made my eyes burn like fire. "This isn't a funeral. This is a coronation. Walk in like a queen taking back her throne." And Evelyn, my lawyer, drilled me with questions. What if he calls you dramatic? What if she calls you a liar? What if the guests try to silence you? For each scenario, she guided me to calm, measured responses. Stay level. Stay factual. Let them raise their voices. You stay steady. The contrast will damn them faster than any evidence. Piece by piece, the plan came together. The night before the party, we gathered in my kitchen. The binder lay at the center of the table, flanked by wine glasses and determination. My allies each touched it, a silent pact. Rachel squeezed my hand. "Tomorrow you won't be alone." Lauren added, "When you stand, we'll stand with you." Claire tapped her laptop. "And when the lights dim, the truth will shine brighter than Vivian's diamonds." Evelyn's voice was calm, final. "Natalie, you've already won. Tomorrow is about showing them and everyone else that they lost." I held my daughter in my arms that night, rocking her gently as the house went quiet. Her tiny face pressed against my shoulder, her breath warm on my skin. I whispered, "Tomorrow I fight for you. Tomorrow I show him what it means to abandon us." The next day dawned crisp and clear. Vivian's house gleamed in the sun, its white columns and manicured lawn ready to host her kingdom of admirers. Cars lined the driveway, guests spilling in with gifts wrapped in gold and silver paper. Laughter floated across the lawn, brittle and sharp. Inside, the chandeliers glowed, and a long table sagged under the weight of catered food. Vivian stood at the center, draped in pearls, her necklace, the necklace Mark had bought, catching the light like a blade. She basked in the adoration of neighbors and relatives, her smile smug, her voice high with glee. Mark hovered at her side, his arm brushing hers like he was still a boy clinging to his mother. He spotted me at the doorway and his face flickered, shock then irritation. But he quickly masked it with a strained smile. "Natalie," he said, his voice loud enough for guests to hear, "you made it. I wasn't sure you'd come. I stepped into the room, emerald dress shimmering, binder tucked under my arm like a shield. My heels clicked against the polished floor, each step deliberate. Gasps whispered through the crowd. They had expected the quiet, beaten wife. Instead, I entered like a storm wrapped in silk. Vivian's smile thinned. Well, she said, her tone dripping with false sweetness, I didn't think you'd have the energy for a party. Motherhood is exhausting, isn't it? I smiled back, calm and cold. Not as exhausting as raising a man who never grew up. A ripple of laughter and shock rolled through the room. Vivian's eyes narrowed. Rachel was already in position, phone angled discreetly. Claire moved toward the projector, her laptop hidden in plain sight. Lauren stood near me, her gaze locked on Mark. Evelyn blended with the guests, her sharp eyes scanning every reaction. The stage was set. The Queen's birthday would become her trial. Vivian's birthday party glittered with false perfection. The chandeliers sparkled, the champagne fizzed, the air reeked of money and smugness. Guests gathered in little clusters, laughing too loudly, whispering too eagerly. It was a celebration built on appearances, and I was about to shatter every illusion. But just as the plan was sliding into motion, something happened that nearly unraveled it all. Claire had set her laptop near the projector, disguised as part of the evening's slideshow. She gave me a small nod across the room, signaling that the files were ready. Rachel, phone steady in her hand, was already recording snippets of Vivian's smug toasts. Lauren hovered close by, her eyes sharp, her stance protective. Evelyn lingered near the bar, her cool gaze following every move. And then Mark approached me. His smile was taut, his grip on my arm far too tight. Natalie, he whispered through clenched teeth. I don't know what you think you're doing, but stop. Right now. I leaned in, my smile serene for the onlookers. Why, Mark? Afraid the truth might not flatter your mother? His face darkened. He lowered his voice to a hiss. If you embarrass her tonight, I'll make sure you regret it. You'll lose everything, me, the house, even her. He jerked his chin toward the bassinet where our daughter slept under Rachel's careful eye. My blood turned to ice. It wasn't just a threat, it was a warning. He was ready to use our child as leverage. I steadied my breath. You already abandoned us, I said softly. You have nothing left to take. Before he could respond, Vivian swept toward us, her pearls gleaming, her perfume thick in the air. She slid between us like a queen reclaiming her soldier. Natalie, dear, she said loudly enough for everyone nearby to hear. Thank you for making the effort to come. I know motherhood has been difficult for you. But don't worry, we're taking good care of Mark. Her words dripped with poison, crafted to humiliate. Gasps rippled through the guests. Some smirked, others raised eyebrows. My cheeks burned, but my resolve burned hotter. I opened my mouth to strike back, but suddenly the lights flickered. The chandelier above trembled, the projector screen blinked to life, and then froze. A bright blue error message filled the wall. Claire's face drained of color. She mouthed, "It's blocked." I felt my stomach drop. Vivian's smug smile widened, as if she had orchestrated it herself. Oh dear, she said sweetly. Technology never works when you need it most. Perhaps it's a sign that some things are better left unseen. Mark's hand tightened on my arm. Walk away, Natalie, he murmured, his voice slick with triumph. You're out of your depth. The crowd chuckled nervously, drifting back to their champagne and hors d'oeuvres. My moment, the carefully planned reveal, was slipping through my fingers. I looked at Claire, who was typing furiously. She shook her head once. The projector had been tampered with. Someone had sabotaged it before we even arrived. My pulse hammered. If the slideshow failed, all I had left was the binder. Paper. Fragile, deniable. Easier for Mark and Vivian to dismiss as a desperate wife's invention. For the first time since planning this night, doubt clawed at me. Could I still pull this off? Would they crush me in front of everyone? Then I felt Rachel's hand slip into mine. She leaned close, whispering so only I could hear. You don't need the machine. You've got the truth in your hands. Use it. Her words steadied me. I straightened my shoulders, emerald dress shimmering under the chandelier's glow. I clutched the binder against my chest and turned toward the stage where Vivian stood, her smile wide, her eyes daring me to fail. Sabotage or not, this night would not belong to her. The projector screen stayed stubbornly blue, its error message glowing like a taunt. Vivian's laughter tinkled through the air, sharp and triumphant. "What a shame," she said, raising her champagne flute. "But we don't need distractions tonight. This evening is about family. My family." Her words were a dagger. My hands tightened on the binder until the plastic sleeves creaked. All around me, guests were drifting back to their conversations, some smirking, others whispering that I had made a fool of myself. But Rachel's whisper still rang in my ear. "You don't need the machine. You've got the truth in your hands." I took a deep breath, stepped forward, and climbed onto the small stage where Vivian basked in the glow of her party. Gasps rose from the crowd as I turned to face them. The emerald fabric of my dress caught the chandelier light, my binder clutched like a weapon. "Since the slideshow isn't working," I said, my voice steady but carrying, "I'll present the truth the old-fashioned way." Vivian's smile faltered. Mark stiffened beside her, his jaw tightening. I opened the binder and pulled out the first page. A receipt. 2 weeks before our daughter was born, my husband purchased an expensive necklace. Not for me. For his mother. I held the paper high so the front rows could see. Murmurs spread instantly. Heads turned toward Vivian, whose pearl-covered throat gleamed in the light. I laid the receipt on the table beside the cake. "That necklace," I continued, "was bought with money from our joint account. Money meant for our baby's future." Vivian's hand flew to her throat. "Lies," she hissed, but her voice cracked. Next came the call logs. I flipped the pages so the audience could see the endless lines of numbers. "These are phone records." Night after night, while I rocked our newborn alone, Mark was calling his mother. Midnight. 2 5 them. He wasn't caring for his child. He was whispering to her. The murmurs grew louder. Some gasped openly. A woman in the crowd muttered, "Unbelievable." Mark stepped forward, his voice rising with panic. "She's twisting everything. My mother needed me. She's just bitter." But the crowd wasn't convinced. I could see it in their faces, their eyes darting between the receipts, the call logs, and the necklace glinting against Vivian's throat. I pulled out the photo next. The one I had snapped through Vivian's window, her laughter frozen in the glass, the necklace catching the light. I held it high. "This is proof. Proof that while I bled in a hospital bed, while I begged for help with our newborn, my husband was here. Smiling, laughing, spoiling his mother while abandoning his family." The ballroom erupted. Gasps, whispers, angry mutters. Some guests looked horrified, others disgusted. Phones rose, recording every second. Vivian's face drained of color. Her hands shook as she slammed her champagne flute down. "You manipulative little girl," she spat, her mask cracking. "You were never good enough for him. You think you can take him from me? He is mine. He always has been." The room went silent. Every guest stared at her, their jaws slack. Vivian's polished image shattered in an instant, her shriek echoing off the crystal chandeliers. Mark grabbed her arm, hissing, "Mom, stop!" But it was too late. Her words hung in the air, undeniable. I stepped closer, my voice calm. "You just proved my case, Vivian. You didn't want a daughter-in-law. You wanted to keep your son as your possession. And he let you. But now everyone sees the truth." The crowd broke into a storm of whispers, some guests shaking their heads, others glaring at Mark and his mother. The respect they once commanded dissolved before my eyes. But then Mark's mask cracked too. His face twisted, sweat dripping down his temples. He slammed his fist on the table, making glasses rattle. "Enough," he roared. "This is my mother's night, and you will not ruin it." He lunged toward me, his hand outstretched for the binder. Security shifted, guests gasped, some screamed. But before he could rip it from my grasp, Lauren stepped between us, her voice cutting like steel. "Touch her, Mark, and you'll regret it more than you regret tonight." The room held its breath, the air electric as Mark froze in place. Red-faced, trembling, caught between fury and fear. The ballroom was no longer a party, it was a courtroom. The chandeliers still glittered, the music still hummed faintly from hidden speakers, but the air had turned sharp, electric. Every guest's eyes were locked on us, phones raised like witnesses ready to testify. Mark froze in front of me, his hands suspended midair, rage burning in his eyes. Lauren stood between us, solid as stone, her warning hanging heavy in the silence. The binder was still in my hands, its pages glowing under the chandelier like holy scripture. Then the whispers began. She abandoned her in the hospital? Unbelievable. I thought they were perfect. Did you hear what his mother screamed? Mine? The murmurs rolled through the crowd like thunder. Vivian's face was chalk white, her lipstick smeared from where her trembling fingers had touched her mouth. Her pearls seemed to strangle her neck. She glanced around wildly, searching for someone, anyone, to defend her. But no one moved. One man near the bar muttered loudly, "Disgusting." I trusted him with my account. Another guest shook her head, hissing, "No wonder she always looks so miserable." Rachel's phone was raised, recording every word, every gesture. I caught her eye, and she gave me the slightest nod. This wasn't just a private disaster anymore. This was public record. Mark tried to recover. His voice boomed, though it cracked at the edges. "She's lying. Twisting everything. You don't understand. My mother needed me. She's been everything to me my whole life." But that only sealed his fate. Gasps followed, then laughter. Not kind but cruel, disbelieving laughter. A guest in a sequin dress muttered, "What about your wife? Your baby?" Another voice cut sharper. "No man abandons his family for his mother and calls it loyalty. That's weakness." Mark's face flushed crimson. He slammed the table again, but this time no one flinched. Instead, guests stepped back, distancing themselves as though his fury were contagious. And then Vivian cracked. Her composure shattered. Her voice rose in a shriek. "She tricked him. She trapped him with that baby. He was mine before she came along, and he'll always be mine." The room erupted. Gasps, shouts, phones zooming in. Vivian's mask of elegance was gone, replaced by a jealous, hysterical figure clawing at the air. Guests whispered in horror, some laughing in disbelief, others shaking their heads. I stepped forward, my voice calm, cutting through the chaos. "You just heard it yourself. She doesn't see me as a wife. She doesn't even see my daughter as his child. She sees him as property, and he let her." The crowd roared, angry murmurs, pitying glances toward me, disgusted stares at them. Mark turned on his mother then, his voice hoarse. "Mom, stop talking." But it was too late. Her words were already carved into every guest's mind, every phone recording, every whisper that would spread beyond these walls. Vivian staggered, her hand gripping the edge of the cake table. The necklace Mark had bought her glittered against her chest, but now it looked like a noose. Security finally edged closer, uncertain if they were needed, but the scene had already passed judgment. No fists had flown, no punches landed, but reputations had been obliterated. Evelyn stepped from the crowd, her voice sharp and professional. "Everyone here is now a witness. Natalie has proof in writing, and now you've heard the admissions with your own ears. Mark, Vivian, you can deny it all you want, but this room knows the truth." Mark's mouth opened, but no sound came. He looked smaller than I had ever seen him, his shoulders slumped, his hands trembling at his sides. The once proud man who boasted about loyalty and strength now looked like a boy caught in the act, ashamed and exposed. Vivian collapsed into a chair, her pearls rattling, her hands shaking violently. She tried to compose herself, but every eye in the room was on her. And then the first guest walked out. A man in a dark suit muttering, "I won't stay here and celebrate lies." His wife followed. Then another couple. One by one the guests filed toward the door, some shaking their heads, others whispering harsh words as they passed. The grand ballroom, once filled with laughter, began to empty. Vivian's grand celebration had turned into an exodus. Mark reached for me one last time, his voice hoarse. "Natalie, please stop this. We can fix it." I turned slowly, meeting his desperate eyes. "You can't fix what you destroyed." The last guest slipped out, leaving only silence, my allies, and two broken people sitting beneath chandeliers that no longer sparkled. Morning came with silence. No clinking glasses, no murmurs of a crowd, no chandeliers glittering above my head. Just the soft breath of my daughter sleeping in her crib, and the faint hum of the refrigerator. For a moment I thought it might have been a dream. But then my phone buzzed. Again. And again. And again. Notifications stacked faster than I could read them. Rachel's recording from the party had gone viral overnight. Millions of views. Shared across platforms, dissected in comments. Headlines screamed across news sites and blogs. Birthday bash turns into exposé. Mother-in-law meltdown goes public. Abandoned wife brings the truth to the table. Clips of Vivian shrieking, "He's mine," looped endlessly, accompanied by captions mocking her possessiveness. Mark's furious denials had been slowed down and remixed into soundbites. And Mimi, standing steady in my emerald dress with the binder clutched to my chest, was being called fearless, the voice of every silenced wife, a queen who rose from betrayal. Lauren called first. Her laughter rang through the phone. "Natalie, you've broken the internet. People are calling Vivian the necklace queen. She'll never live this down." Rachel texted screenshots of supportive comments. "She's stronger than I'll ever be. Imagine leaving your wife in the hospital for your mommy. She's an inspiration. Proof that silence is never the answer." Claire updated me on the digital front. "Backups are secure. Even if they try to scrub it, the files are everywhere now. Screenshots, reposts, downloads. It's untouchable." And then Evelyn called. Her voice was calm but firm. "Natalie, the fallout has already begun. Mark's company suspended him this morning. Clients are pulling out. His reputation is shredded. As for Vivian, she's being ridiculed in every social circle that once praised her. The gala crowd is talking. She'll be a pariah by the end of the week." I should have felt relief, but I felt something more complicated. Watching a man unravel on a screen, hearing strangers laugh at Vivian, it was justice, yes. But it was also sad, a confirmation of just how broken they had always been. Still, justice was justice. By noon, reporters were outside Vivian's house. Photos of her hiding behind curtains made their way online, each one met with mockery. Mark tried to leave through the garage, but someone caught him on video shouting at a neighbor who dared to ask, "How's your mom, Mark?" The clip spread like wildfire. But beneath the triumph there was something else. A chill. Because late that evening, as I nursed my daughter and scrolled through the tidal wave of news, a new message appeared on my phone. "Unknown number. You think you've won? You humiliated us. You made me lose everything. Now you'll see what it feels like." My heart thudded painfully. The words dripped with venom, the same tone Mark used when cornered. I looked at my daughter's tiny face, peaceful and trusting in my arms. I whispered, "He can't touch us anymore. He can't." But even as I said it, unease crawled along my skin. Because men like Mark and women like Vivian didn't surrender easily. The party was over, but the war might not be. The message on my phone glowed like a threat in the dark. "You think you've won? You humiliated us. You made me lose everything. Now you'll see what it feels like." For a few moments, fear knotted in my stomach. His words brought back nights of silence, days of begging, the endless loop of him walking out the door. I almost let the fear consume me again. Almost. But then I looked at my daughter. She stirred softly in her crib, her tiny fingers curling in sleep. She was safe. She was loved. She was mine. And no threat could erase the fact that I had already won. Mark had lost everything. His job, his reputation, the fragile pedestal he'd built by parading loyalty while betraying his family. Vivian had lost her image, her pride, the illusion of control she had clung to for years. Together, they had been exposed not just to me but to everyone. Their empire of lies had crumbled under the chandeliers of a birthday party meant to glorify her. I thought about the binder on my table. It was still there, thick and heavy, every page a reminder of what I had endured. But it was more than a collection of receipts and photos. It was proof that silence is not survival. Proof that speaking, even when your voice shakes, can change everything. I didn't plan to keep the binder forever. Someday, when my daughter was old enough, I would tell her the story. I would show her those pages, not to burden her, but to teach her. Love is not measured by how much pain you endure. Love is measured by respect, by presence, by truth. In the weeks that followed, life began to quiet. The storm online slowed to a steady hum. Supportive messages still poured in, some from women I'd never met. "You gave me courage to leave. I thought I was alone until I heard your story. Thank you for speaking when I couldn't." Every message reminded me that my revenge wasn't just for me. It was for every woman silenced by gaslighting, every mother abandoned, every wife told she would never win. I won. Not because Mark suffered, but because I stood. One evening I sat on the balcony, watching the city lights flicker. My daughter slept inside, her soft breathing carrying through the open window. For the first time in months I felt peace. Not the fragile peace of denial, but the solid peace of survival. I whispered into the night, "You can threaten me all you want, but you can't unmake the truth, and you can't take back what I reclaimed." My revenge wasn't rage. It wasn't destruction. It was proof. It was dignity. It was walking into a room full of people who doubted me and leaving with my head high, while the liars cowered in the ruins of their own choices. And now, to you, the one listening, the one watching, maybe the one hurting, hear this. If you are ever told you are too dramatic, too needy, too much, remember my story. Remember Natalie. Remember that the truth is always stronger than their lies. If I could expose the people who abandoned me and my baby, if I could turn betrayal into power, then so can you. Never let silence protect the guilty. Never let fear chain your voice. I was abandoned, but I was not broken. I was betrayed, but I was not destroyed. I was underestimated, but I rose anyway. And when the night came to choose his mother or his family, he chose wrong. I chose revenge. I chose freedom. I chose us. If my story moved you, subscribe for more. Because betrayal hides in shadows, but revenge, true empowering revenge, always brings light.